What do you do when your neighbor's glare could curdle milk, but her secrets are buried deeper than her scowl? The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the cul-de-sac where I'd just moved in. My name's Jake, and I'd come to this quiet suburb seeking peace after a messy divorce. My two hounds, Rusty and Scout, were my only companions, big, drooling mutts with hearts bigger than their brains. They'd bound through the yard, chasing squirrels and barking at the wind, their joy a stark contrast to the gray weight I carried. But peace, it seemed, wasn't on the menu in this neighborhood. Not with Karen living next door. Karen was a mountain of a woman, her presence as imposing as her perpetually sour expression. Her face, round and flushed, seemed locked in a permanent snarl, lips pursed like she'd just bitten a lemon. She'd stand on her porch, arms crossed, her beady eyes tracking every move I made. The first time we met, she didn't bother with a hello. "Those dogs better not dig up my lawn," she snapped, pointing a manicured finger at Rusty, who was sniffing a dandelion. I nodded, forcing a smile, but her gaze burned through me like I'd committed a felony by existing. The trouble started a week later. It was a Saturday, and I'd taken Rusty and Scout for a walk around the block. The neighborhood was postcard-perfect manicured lawns, white picket fences, kids on bikes. But as we passed Karen's house, her front door flew open. "Keep those beasts off my property," she bellowed, her voice sharp enough to shatter glass. Rusty, oblivious, wagged his tail and trotted toward her rose bushes. I yanked him back, apologizing, but Karen wasn't having it. "I'll call the cops if they so much as sniff my grass again," she threatened, her jowls quivering with rage. I muttered something about calming down and hurried away, her glare boring into my back. The next day, I decided to train the dogs in the backyard, hoping to avoid another showdown. Rusty and Scout were working on sit and stay, their tongues lolling as they chased treats. I didn't notice Karen watching from her window until I heard her voice, shrill and venomous. "You're disturbing the peace," she yelled, storming into my yard uninvited. Her bulk loomed over the low fence, her face a mask of indignation. "Those dogs are a menace, and I won't stand for it." I tried reasoning with her, explaining they were just playing, but she cut me off. "I'm calling the police." "You'll see." She spun on her heel, her floral muumuu flapping like a warning flag. True to her word, a patrol car rolled up within the hour. Two officers, a wiry man named Officer Daniels and a no-nonsense woman named Officer Lee, stepped out. Karen was already on her lawn, arms flailing as she recounted my crimes. The dogs, she claimed, were a public safety hazard, barking at all hours and terrorizing her. I stood there, dumbfounded, as Rusty licked Officer Daniels' hand and Scout rolled over for a belly rub. The officers listened patiently, but I could see their skepticism. "Ma'am," Officer Lee said, "we'll need evidence of a disturbance. Barking during the day isn't exactly a crime." Karen's face reddened, her voice rising to a screech. "This is outrageous. I pay taxes. I demand action." I thought that was the end of it. The officers left, advising me to keep the dogs leashed near Karen's property. I complied, not wanting more drama. But Karen wasn't done. Over the next week, she escalated. She'd bang on my door at dawn, claiming the dog's stench was ruining her air quality. She left notes on my car, accusing me of letting them defile her mailbox. Once, she even threw a half-eaten sandwich over the fence, screaming that it was to keep those mutts quiet. I was at my wit's end, but I kept my cool, knowing she was itching for a fight. Then came the twist I never saw coming. One evening, I was walking Rusty and Scout through the wooded trail behind our houses. It was a public path, but Karen's backyard bordered it, hidden behind a dense wall of pines. Scout, ever the curious one, started sniffing the ground near her fence, his nose twitching like he'd caught a scent. Before I could pull him back, he bolted, squeezing through a gap in the pines. Rusty followed, and I scrambled after them, cursing under my breath. I found them pawing at a rickety shed tucked deep in Karen's backyard, barely visible through the trees. It was old, its paint peeling, and it reeked of something sharp and chemical. "Get those dogs away." Karen's voice exploded from her back porch. She charged toward us, her face a thundercloud, but Scout wouldn't budge. He was growling, low and steady, his nose pressed to the shed's door. I apologized, tugging at his collar, but then I noticed something. Scout wasn't just curious. He was alerting, the way he'd been trained years ago when I'd briefly worked with a K9 unit. My stomach dropped. What was in that shed? Karen reached us, panting and furious. This is private property. I'm calling the cops again, she shrieked, her phone already in hand. But Scout's growling intensified, and Rusty started barking, their focus locked on the shed. I hesitated, then decided to push back. Karen, what's in there? I asked, my voice calm but firm. Her eyes widened, just for a split second, before narrowing into slits. None of your business, she snapped, but her voice wavered. I didn't back down. My dog's trained to detect certain things. If there's something illegal in there, the police will find out. Her bravado crumbled. She stammered, trying to deflect, but the cops were already on their way, thanks to her own call. When they arrived, Officers Daniels and Lee again, they noticed Scout's behavior immediately. Daniels, who'd worked with K9S himself, asked Karen to open the shed. She refused, her face paling, but Lee wasn't playing games. Ma'am, we can do this the easy way or get a warrant, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Karen's hands shook as she unlocked the shed. The stench hit us first, chemicals, sharp and acrid. Inside, the officers found shelves lined with jars, bags of white powder, and equipment that screamed makeshift lab. Meth. Karen, the neighborhood tyrant, was running a drug operation in her backyard. The revelation hit like a freight train. The officers cuffed her as she screamed about her rights, her face contorted in a mix of rage and fear. Scout and Rusty sat proudly by my side, tails wagging, oblivious to the chaos they'd unleashed. As they led Karen away, a new figure emerged from the crowd of neighbors who'd gathered to gawk. It was Mrs. Ellis, a quiet widow who lived across the street. She was tiny, her white hair pulled into a neat bun, her eyes bright with something I hadn't expected: relief. She approached me, her voice soft but steady. I've suspected something for months, she said. Strange cars at night, that smell, but I was too scared to say anything. She threatened me once, said she'd make my life hell if I snooped. Her words shifted the weight of the moment. Karen hadn't just been a bully to me. She'd terrorized others, too, hiding her crimes behind her bluster. The fallout was swift. Karen's house was searched, her operation dismantled. The neighborhood buzzed with shock, but also a strange sense of freedom. People started talking, sharing stories of Karen's intimidation, petty complaints, veiled threats, even sabotaging a kid's lemonade stand. She'd built a kingdom of fear, but Scout's nose had toppled it. I felt a mix of vindication and pity. Karen's life was unraveling, her secrets exposed, but I couldn't help wondering what had driven her to this. Was it greed? Desperation? Or just a need to control something? Anything? In a world she couldn't bully into submission? Weeks later, the cul-de-sac felt different. Lighter. Mrs. Ellis started baking cookies for the neighborhood kids, and people waved when I walked Rusty and Scout. Karen's house went up for sale, a silent reminder of her downfall. I'd learned something, too. Sometimes, the loudest bark hides the darkest secret. And sometimes, a good dog can sniff out the truth no one else dares to face. Yindy.